Well, if you're wondering what it's like to do a podcast with your brother, as soon as I hop onto the pod, he said, "You look horrible."
You kind of do. Something's wrong with your eyeballs.
I did. I had eyelid surgery. If you're on YouTube, this is one of the things on YouTube you could see. I am not wearing eyeshadow. That is stitches and bruises.
You have
Um,
stitches in there? Are they the
yeah.
dissolving ones, or do you have them
No,
taken out?
I have to go have them taken out on Friday. Look,
Oh, it's like a horror
I
movie.
know I look like a Halloween decoration.
Is that what you're going for?
Yeah. Harper goes, "You should have waited and done it by Halloween." I'm like, "Thanks."
Yeah, it looks scary.
I know.
I've been following your Instagram stories
Oh yeah.
about how the swelling has gone down, and you asked us to ask you a question, and you
Well,
got
I
all these
said if
questions, and
anybody
then
has any questions about the procedure or recovery.
so I sent in the question that I always wonder is, Suzanne, what gives you the right?
And I shared it and I answered. And I
You
said,
didn't
"Bleep
answer it. You
you."
just you just said this is what happens when your brother follows you on Instagram.
Yeah. This is how supportive my brother is. Number one, you look like hell. And number two, what gives you the right?
I'm
Thanks.
your
I'm
Instagram
healing.
troll.
I'm healing nicely. Thanks, Jay. It's going well. Thanks. I did talk to you right before the surgery. I do remember that kind of because you called. You called
Yeah, you're like,
pre-surgery.
I feel so tall. I'm so much taller than everybody. I'm like, well, now I know that you're under the influence because you're not.
It was so weird. I do not take pain meds at all. I hate how they make me feel. And mom was walking me into the building, and I was like, oh my God, I am so tall. Like, I can't tell you how far away the ground was. It was like, I was like 7 feet tall. And I was like, why didn't anyone know how tall I am?
And I was just calling to find out when we were recording, and then
And I was like, no, I'm
typical,
tall.
couldn't get an answer out of you.
Okay.
I'm so tired. I'm sick and tired, Suzanne, of this podcast.
I'm sick and tired of you.
It's just like rainy, and it's just it's like one of those tired days, you know?
Yeah, I love
I'm
those
just
days.
tired. I'm so tired.
I loved it. Well, I love the energy you're bringing this morning, first of
I'm
all.
bringing very low energy to today's podcast. You're going to have to
What's
carry it.
new? What's
Unlike
new?
normal, you're going to have to carry the podcast.
Um, I love those days. I love rainy days. I love days when it's dark and you have to turn
There
the
was
lights
only
on.
one set of footprints because I was carrying the podcast.
Where's the podcast footprints?
You didn't see them because I was carrying it.
Okay, on this day in
Oh, we're doing this again?
look at your hair. Yeah,
What?
it looks like a loofah. Okay, you guys, this is the YouTube content you're here for. I know it. Is Jay?
I asked for the Ed Grimley look.
You got it. It's our third co-host, Jay's hair. Oh my God, even the profile. Hold on, we got to take a picture of that. Oh my God. It's totally the Ed Grimley. All right, so pick a year. On this day in what 1990 year?
1990.
Oh, okay. So on September 23rd, 1990, I'll tell you what happened.
Okay, tell me.
Okay.
We're waiting.
I know. Hold on. Well, this is live. Okay. Oh, well,
I don't
Saddam
have all
Hussein.
day to wait for this.
Yeah, this isn't a great one. Saddam Hussein says he'll destroy Israel.
Oh,
That's not a good one. Okay, PBS begins an 11-hour miniseries on the Civil War.
how'd that work out for Saddam?
Yeah, not well.
Not great.
Not great. Down
Yeah.
goes Saddam.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this one was
Also, a
a bit of a
miniseries
downer.
about
The
there's a
Civil,
miniseries about the Civil War.
but it's an 11-hour miniseries. That sounds like a maxi series. That's not mini. That's like 4 movies. How can no? That's like 5 movies. How is that a
and that's
miniseries?
and that's before it was like binge watching.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you
Was
had to
that
wait.
Was that the Ken Burns
I know.
documentary?
I bet it was. I was just thinking that. And he has another one out on the Holocaust that is just out now. I don't know if you knew that, Jay.
I didn't know that. Where is it? Is it on? What's it on?
PBS.
PBS again?
Yeah. Let's see. Ken Burns Holocaust. Yeah, on PBS. Yep. Mm-hmm.
He's been at it for a while.
Oh, it's a 3-parter. So that's a little bit more palatable, I would say. Yeah, Ken Burns is where it's at with documentaries.
What's the frequency, Kenneth?
Yeah, what's the
Burns.
frequency, Ken Burns? Okay, Fibro Nostalgia.
I've got a good one, and okay. I'll go first today.
You got to fix your hair first. It's parting. It's like parting the Red Sea. It's okay. Go first.
So I was going to do Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Remember, we would listen to that with Mom in the car driving
fast.
What?
Driving fast.
Driving fast in the car.
I was like, hold on, kids.
Yeah, but it's about somebody like escaping their
abusive,
alcoholic, downtrodden life, and we're like singing it with our mom.
Yeah,
like Fast Car, woo.
Yeah.
But that was 1988, so it didn't qualify for Fibro Nostalgia. Yeah.
Okay, Fibro Nostalgia has to be in the 90s.
Has to be in the 90s. So I switched gears.
Okay.
And I chose Matt Foley.
This is so funny that you chose.
It's so funny.
Matt Foley.
Matt Foley, the motivational speaker, living in a van down by the river.
Chris Farley, because you know what my choice was?
What?
SNL. Just the SNL cast in the 90s.
You can't just do SNL.
Yeah, you can.
You have to choose one. No, in the time when I'm going to tell, there are rules.
Okay, then
rules keep us away from chaos.
Yeah, but you can. It can be a broad one, or it can be very specific. So okay,
it'd be I choose Daylight. Remember, it was Daylight in the 90s.
I do choose Daylight.
No, you have to choose
Matt
a specific
Foley.
Cast member and a specific skit.
Okay, fine, I got it. Done. No prob.
All right,
Matt
shot.
Foley. Tell the backstory about Matt Foley.
The backstory.
The backstory.
Well, he was a motivational speaker, and he was down on his luck. And what is going on?
Wow, you came in so hot. Okay.
Well, that was his whole thing, was that he's down in the basement drinking like 5 cups of coffee, and then he comes up and he tries to help the kids who, I think they were smoking pot. And
David Spade and Christina Applegate specifically.
Yeah. And his whole catchline was, you're going to end up living in a van down by the river.
Yeah.
And one of the funny parts, well, the whole thing's hilarious, but one of the funny parts was he asked Christina Applegate what she wants to do in her life. And she said, I want to live in a van down by the river. And he said, you'll have a lot of fun,
living in a van,
down by the river when you're living in a van down by the river.
And that David Spade was just like breaking that whole time.
They both were.
Yeah,
and Christina Applegate had her hair down over her face because they were laughing the whole time. It was like peak Chris Farley. It really was.
It was. And do you remember? So we have like just a teeny tiny history with Chris Farley.
I have a signed Chris Farley headshot that says, Jay, stick your nose in there, Chris Farley.
Okay, because our mom was friends with Marianne Farley, who's his mom, because Chris Farley's from Madison.
From Wisconsin.
And our mom was an interior designer in Madison, and she designed Chris Farley. She helped design Chris Farley's mom's house, mom and dad. And so then Chris Farley's mom, Marianne, was like a teeny, I think she's still alive. She's like a teeny tiny person. So then we would get like and this was in the 90s. And so we would get like some insight and some like backstory on, like, I remember mom saying that Marianne was like horrified by Chris Farley's Chippendale skit. And like she could, like
Which,
she
I
was
mean, if
so
you're,
embarrassed.
he was a good dancer.
So
I mean,
good.
he was dancing really well.
Yeah, he had rhythm. Also, Matt Foley was a priest and like a
Yeah.
really good family friend of Chris Farley, and not at all anything like the Matt Foley that Chris Farley created.
Well, I did some research because I, unlike you, prepare for our brand new information episodes.
See, I don't even have to. I just know these things off the top of my head.
So he first appeared in 1993 on SNL, and
Mhm.
the character was created by Bob Odenkirk, Better Call
Oh,
Saul.
oh, really?
Yeah, Chris Farley gave him the name, but Odenkirk created the character, and the character's history was that he's, one, a motivational speaker.
Yes.
Two, he was a prison inmate at Joliet Correctional Center. And three, he was a mall Santa. He had 3 ex-wives. The first one was named Linda. The other 2 are so far unnamed.
Linda. Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And then he smashes the coffee table.
Yeah. It was always that physical humor, because he was like he was so sprightly even though he was large. Like
Yeah,
he
he could move.
could do
He could
all
move.
these things with his
Yeah.
body. It was
Yeah.
so yeah.
I mean, it maybe had something to do with the large amounts of
Cocaine in
drugs
his
coursing
body.
through his system, but
Could be.
yeah, for any of our listeners, if you haven't seen Matt Foley, you should Google it and watch it. It's so funny. I actually made a comment to one of my friends who's a millennial, and I was like, yeah, you're going to end up living in a van down by the river. And he's like, what? I am? I'm like, no, it's Matt Foley.
Like, how mean would that be? If he was like, he had never seen it. He's like, God, that's so dark.
So I sent him the video, and he had never seen it. He had never seen
like
Matt Foley.
I feel like all of our listeners have seen Matt Foley. That's why they're our listeners.
That's
like,
true. We do
I feel like
have
they
a
really
specific listener
appreciate.
group.
Yeah.
Our fan base is also the Matt Foley fan base. It's like a Venn diagram with like the 2 circles right on top of each other.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of crossover. Okay, well,
so
mine
wasn't that a no? Hold on, wasn't that a good fiber nostalgia?
That was good. Even though mine was good too, that it was just the cast of the SNL in the 90s, because I was thinking about.
But I just want you to tell me how great this.
I
think this is my best one, because nothing really reminds me of the 90s more than Matt Foley, because it's like over the top but also helpful. Like he's trying to help the kids, but he's just not,
and also
can't get out of his own way.
Yeah, and now he's dead. So there's
yes,
that's appropriate too.
Very Gen X.
Yeah, like his flame was just too bright for this world.
It did burn brightly and for a short time.
Yes. Yeah, I liked it. Okay, so since you bullied me and coerced me,
I didn't bully you.
Oh no, roll back the tape. As heard on this podcast. Fine. If I had to choose a skit that I love from the 90s, it's Gap Girls.
Lay off me, I'm starving.
And it's David Spade, Chris Farley, and Adam Sandler. And their names, it's about 3 girls who work at the Gap. Oh my God, Cindy. Cindy Crawford, Christy Henderson, and Lucy Braun.
Wait, the one's named Cindy Crawford?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And so it was, the skits were from 1993 to 1995, and they were just perfect. They were just that, like, they were talking to me. They were like folding clothes in the Gap, and they were just like, oh my God, Cindy, why did you? And the famous catchphrase is, Cindy, are you gonna like something about the fries they were sitting down to eat?
If you like it so much, why don't you marry it?
Yeah. Well, Cindy, if you like it so much, why don't you marry it? And then Chris Farley as one of the girls goes, "Lay off me, I'm starving," which is like so funny.
It's
And
like
then
his El Nino voice.
totally.
El
And
Nino is Spanish for La Nino.
no, the Nino. You missed it.
I made it French. Oh, can we cut
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, we can. Um no, but it's another one where David Spade was breaking. Like he could not, like David Spade just could not hold it together. And I feel like on Saturday Night Live that did start an era where they were like kind of okay with that. With like Jimmy Fallon was another one who could just like
Oh,
never
well,
keep a straight face.
he could never get through a sketch.
No,
Jimmy
like in
Fallon like never did.
like in Debbie Downer, like when Rachel Dratch was like wah wah, and like Jimmy Fallon was always just breaking up. And before that, though, Lorne Michaels really didn't want them to, and he thought that it like ruined the sketch of and like took people out of the moment.
It
And
kind
now
of does.
it does, but it's kind of a meta thing that it's like, yeah, this is funny, and they know it's funny too.
Yeah, to a point. Too
To a
much of
point.
it.
I
Yeah.
don't see, and that's what made me think about SNL because I don't watch it anymore. Like it's not appointment TV like it was. Like we were like we have to watch it, even though I'm sure we watched it when it was recorded. But I
It
just
was
don't
so
even know
good.
who's
That
on. Like
90s cast was so good.
it was so good. It was the best, and I have my girls watch like clips because I
Yeah.
want them growing up knowing. Like if someone makes a Matt Foley reference, they're gonna know who that is.
Well, and the David Spade, Chris Farley duo then went on to make Tommy Boy, which was a huge classic, and
So
Black Sheep,
big.
which not
Not
as
as
much of a
much.
classic.
I guess David Spade killed a Gap Girls movie. I guess it was in the works, and he put the kibosh on it.
Probably good. I mean,
Probably for the best. Also,
yeah.
Joe Dirt, like that is a cult classic that I
Is
did
Chris
not.
Farley in that?
I don't think so. I don't know because I didn't get into that. But that's David Spade's like big one.
He's yeah, he's the bus driver in Billy Madison. Chris Farley is.
I like how it was all very like incestuous. Like they would all just cast each other in movies all the time.
He was in Wayne's World. He was the security guard in Wayne's World.
That's
who has
right.
like too much information about where everybody's going.
Oh
And
my
Wayne
god.
is like, for a security guard, he really knew a lot.
Wayne's World, that was going to be another one of mine for later. Schwing. Okay. That was good. I like how we were like for
We're
once
on the same page.
Yeah, like for
Well,
once
no,
in
I
our
was
life.
on a more. We were in the same book, and I was on a page. You had.
I was the book, which is kind of I like that.
Do you remember Phil Hartman?
Of course, yeah.
He died, didn't he?
Yeah, he died. His wife killed him.
Really?
Yeah, and then she killed herself.
Was that while he was on SNL?
I don't know. Let's see. He died in 98. Let's see. Yeah, they got into a fight, and then she shot him.
I feel like he could have had a good post SNL career.
Totally, he was so funny. Remember
he was
him
like the straight guy. He was like the guy who was like the normal guy.
Well, he was the guy. What's the "You are correct, sir" to Johnny Carson? What was his name?
Ed McMahon.
Yeah, he was Ed McMahon to Dana Carvey's Johnny Carson. That was earlier, I think, though, than the 90s. Was that the 80s?
He was in So I Married an Axe Murderer. He was the prison guard at Alcatraz. My name's John Johnson, but everybody here calls me Vicky.
No, was it Vicky? That's so funny. Otherwise known as a shiv. Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
I got a pretty heavy topic, so we can end with mine, and you can go first.
Okay, I mean mine's not light. This
What is it?
I took pop culture into a different direction. There's a lot of things I could talk about, like I could talk about the fact that Adam Levine cheated on his Victoria's Secret supermodel wife with an Instagram model. Um, but I won't
Who's
because
he was in Maroon
Maroon
5.
5. Yeah, and now like I think like two more models came out and he's denying the affairs but saying that he did cross a line. And it's like, "Oh, right,
Wait,
so
so
you
he's
just
cheated with
sexted
on
them?"
4? That's Maroon 4.
Yeah. But also
There's got
this
to be
came
another one
out.
out there somewhere.
I said that I wasn't going to talk about it and now I'm talking about it, but it came out because he then contacted this girl he was having an affair with. They hadn't spoken for months, and then he contacted her because now his wife is pregnant with their third child, Bahati. Her name's Bahati. Come on, she's hot.
Bahati
Yeah,
with a
Bahati
wait. The kid's
Prinsloo.
name is Bahati, or the
No,
wife's name is?
the one I would not call the kid the wife. The
Wait,
wife's
Bahati.
Hati. Yeah,
Bahati.
Bahati Prinsloo. And so he contacted this model, Sumner Stroh, and said, "My wife is pregnant with our third child. Can I name the child? If it's a boy, can I name it after you? Can I name him Sumner?" How
Well,
bleeped up is that?
he doesn't need her permission. He can name his kid whatever he wants.
How crazy is that? You're going to
But
cheat on your wife and then, first of all, name your baby after your mistress, but also like reach out to your mistress? Oh my God. Okay. I'm
I
not
mean,
going to talk about that. Like I
I
said.
think it's just common courtesy. I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's just,
She has first right of refusal on naming
it
the baby.
it's just
Obviously,
something
as
that's
it should be.
understood is you just have to reach out and ask somebody who doesn't have anything to do with anything
Yeah.
how, how you should name your child.
Yeah, for sure. Well, she did have something to do with something. Anyway, he's a piece of bleep, but I don't think that's shocking. Like famous men, I think are stupid and horrible. There, I said it.
I don't think all of them are.
Most of them are. There's something with ego and power. There's something that happens.
I'm a good person.
I know, but you're not famous.
You're right.
You hang your head.
You're right.
I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about another stupid, famous white man who we used to love and who I would never say that I'm glad that our grandma's not alive. But
Elvis?
no, I
Oh,
am going to say I'm glad that our grandma is not alive to see this story.
I wish our grandma was still alive. I miss
Well,
grandma.
well, I do too, but I'm just saying, do you know what I'm glad she's missing? Who did
The
grandma
Elvis
love?
movie. Elvis.
No, I wish she would have seen that. She would have loved it. I just
Yeah.
watched it. No, who did grandma love?
John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, we're going to go down the list. Enrique Iglesias, Steven Seagal, Bruno Mars, John Bon. Like, these are all true. I'm not
Yeah,
making
good.
this up.
Right.
It's funny because it's true.
I mean, the list is long.
The list
but
is long.
distinguished.
Yeah. Brett Favre.
Oh.
Oh.
You know,
I mean, the Brett Favre scandal. First of all, Brett Favre is not new to scandals. We remember, so Jay and I are from Wisconsin. We are diehard Packers fans. I went to college in Green Bay. It's just in our blood. You just have to love the Packers and root for the Packers. And Brett Favre was a god. He was playing while I was in college. And while I did date a Packer, it was not him. And I did party with Packers, but he was never there. But yeah, he was a god. Do you remember that quote? Like, um, what was it? Something about like 96% of women want to. I can't remember now. Cut it. I don't remember. It was just about men and women wanting to be and sleep with Brett Favre, like that. He was revered, right, Jay? You don't have to comment on the sleeping with part, but he was revered.
I remember having conversations with grandma when Brett Favre was sort of on the downswing of his career, and I was like, we should cut him. He's not consistent. He does a great thing, and then he'll do a horrible thing. And I'm like, do you want the captain of a ship to like make really good turns and really bad turns? Like, you want consistency in your leader. I remember talking to grandma about that, and she's like, Jay, don't even say that about
I know,
Brett
like she
Favre.
would not even.
Oh,
He wasn't smart. Like you could just tell he was not a smart player. He was very like he would make some
he was the
incredible plays.
gunslinger. He
Yeah,
was the gunslinger.
he would make incredible plays that were not thought out that just happened to work, and like he took chances. He just wasn't smart. And I think we're seeing that even.
Didn't he say that he got thousands of concussions?
Yes, and Aaron Rodgers, I think yes, Aaron Rodgers has said that he has had like maybe 3 or 4 concussions, and Joe Rogan was like, didn't Brett Favre say that he's had like thousands? And Aaron was kind of like, you could kind of see how Aaron Rodgers feels about Brett Favre, in that he's kind of a joke. And I think Aaron considers himself very intelligent and Brett Favre not. And he was like, yeah, he would have to get a concussion on every hit. And so then Joe Rogan read a quote from Brett Favre that was like, on every hit, I saw stars and everything went black. And then Aaron's like, okay, then he did get thousands of concussions. Like something's not right with that.
Well, he was addicted to painkillers. I remember that.
Yeah, he was addicted to Vicodin. He went to the Jets and then sent dick pics to like trainers. Was caught with
There was
that.
that reporter
Yeah.
woman.
Okay, a
From
reporter.
Versus. It was a Versus reporter. Versus
Okay.
is like a sports network.
Okay.
Short-lived. It's like ESPN,
Well, and
the Ocho.
And he, his wife was battling breast cancer while he played with us, and that really like always endeared him to the fans. And like we were really all about Brett Favre. And then it seemed like as soon as he was going to retire, and then he left us, then he didn't retire, and then he went to the Jets and the Vikings and all that stuff, like he went downhill. And so now he's involved in a scandal. It's a Mississippi scandal that involves $5 million in welfare funds used to finance a volleyball stadium, which is first.
That's what I always say is like, if you're going to put your reputation on the line,
do it for
a
volleyball.
volleyball stadium.
Yeah.
I always say that.
You do. Volleyball
is worth destroying your reputation for.
Hey, I love volleyball. I played it in high school.
You did not play volleyball in high school.
Whoa. Yes, I did. I won best defensive. I lettered. I was a
You had a letter jacket?
Yes, I just didn't wear it like you. You're such a dork. I did not wear my letter jacket.
When the leaves change, I just like to put on my old letter jacket.
You probably do. You had so many of those medals. It'd be like clink, 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 clink. They're like, here comes Jay.
Actually, I have my wall behind me. You can't see it, but I have the letter with all the medals that Mom framed for me.
See, like this is the difference between your growing up and mine. No one even knew I had a letter jacket, and Mom framed yours. I'm not bitter. And you're like, you didn't play volleyball. I'm like, no, I didn't. I was actually really good at it.
Did you play in high school or just junior?
Yes. I played in high school. I got on varsity as like a freshman or sophomore. No, I got on varsity as a sophomore. Yeah. God.
Was your volleyball team not good or something?
No, it was good. Thank you. You were just running track. Actually, when we sold Dad's Jaguar, that was his like prized possession, his most favorite thing in the world, he had a Baraboo volleyball keychain on his Jaguar keys, and I have it now. So Dad
yeah, and I saw it, and I was like, well, that's random.
You were like, who played volleyball? Anyway.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry about not paying attention to you at all in high school.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is such a this is such a weird thing. And I mean, it's not just weird, it's like horrible. So the former governor Phil Bryant helped Brett Favre secure welfare funding for USM Volleyball Stadium, and these never before seen text messages show how the former governor tried to secure welfare funds on the construction of a new volleyball stadium. I don't know, I don't know why volleyball. I don't know what's going on, but this is a really big deal. First of all, Brett Favre is worth like $100 and some million. Um, so it's not like he couldn't fund it, but also you find sponsors. Like you don't use Mississippi is one of the poorest, or maybe the poorest state in the nation. And so you have a governor and a former NFL quarterback stealing from the poorest residents of the country.
Yeah, but now they have a volleyball court.
That's true. Now they could just play volleyball.
This isn't let them eat cake. This is let them play volleyball.
Yeah. So Bryant, Favre, and then a few other people worked together to channel at least $5 million of the state's welfare funds to build the new volleyball stadium at the University of Southern Mississippi, where Favre's daughter played the sport. Favre received most of the credit for raising funds to construct the facility.
So what's his exposure here? Is he being criminally charged?
Well, so okay. There are other people in here. Let me just hold on. Because the text messages are what came out that show that the governor guided Favre on how to write a funding proposal. He was like, okay, that's so funny. I could just see that. He's like,
okay, grab
Dear
your pencil.
Sirs,
Do you have a pencil?
DEAR. Brett, that's not a comma. No, that's an exclamation point. Put a comma after sirs. So he guided him on how to write a proposal so it would be accepted by the Mississippi Department of Human Services, even after Bryant ousted the former welfare agency director, John Davis, for suspected fraud. So apparently, everyone's crooked. So the nonprofit founder, Nancy New, is also in on this. And she is, hold on. So she's the one who her attorney released the text messages saying, like, wait a second, they are in on this too. It's just she pleaded guilty to 13 felony counts related to the scheme, and Davis, who is another person involved, awaits trial. But neither Bryant nor Favre have been charged with any crime. So it seems like the lesser known people are being charged. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means for going forward for them, but I'll link this. It's a Mississippi Today article. I'll link it in the show notes. But it's crazy. Shannon Sharpe went on kind of a tirade against Brett Favre, who, Jay, you know, Shannon Sharpe was famously like a good receiver for us.
No, you're wrong.
Okay, Sharper. No,
No.
Sharp. Oh, not a receiver. What was he?
No.
Sterling
Sharpe.
Yes, that's right.
Sterling Sharpe was a receiver for us. His brother,
right.
Shannon Sharpe.
His brother. Yeah. Right. Okay. Cut
Herbie
that.
Hancock.
Herbie Hancock. Yes. So he went on a tirade like he can't believe all of this stuff. It's not good. So even if he's not going to be charged criminally.
It looks bad. Bad.
It's really bad. It's really bad. And the fact that he's like taking credit for like raising funds. I don't like it. It's bad.
I mean, I know that ignorance of the law is not defense of the law, but like, there's a pretty good chance he was ignorant of the situation.
You think?
I mean, I don't think I don't know, but it's possible that there wasn't malice involved. It was just ignorance.
So it's interesting. Let's see.
What's more likely, malice or ignorance, Suzanne?
Well, with Brett Favre, it's ignorance, but um I I don't think you can put malice past him though.
Really?
Because yeah, I don't think I can't imagine he didn't know where these funds were coming from. That he gets $5 million and doesn't know at all the source. You know, especially all of these people seem to be working to make it happen. So I don't know.
Okay, well, that's a developing story that we'll pay attention to here at Brand New Information.
Yeah, we will. And also, there was a picture of, because I think Brett Favre's a Trumper, which is not all that surprising. And there's a picture of him standing next to Donald Trump, and it says "dick pic,"
Will
which
you
is
link that
funny.
in the show notes?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's what I have.
Okay.
Another white male doing horrible things.
All right. So to transition, um, Suzanne, I'm not sure if you heard, but this weekend, our president, Joe Biden,
Oh, okay.
yep, Joe Biden,
Got it.
um, declared that the pandemic is over.
I did hear that.
What
I
did you
I
think when
feel
he
like
said that?
I thought, thank God, not that it's over, but thank God that he said it,
Yeah.
because I think that a lot of people needed to hear that for their mental health. I also thought it didn't get the coverage that I'm surprised that it's not being covered more widely. I don't know if that was because of like the Queen's funeral kind of took over, but that did seem to be kind of lost in the
Well, I
headlines.
think that just illustrates that it is over because people don't want to hear about it anymore. I mean, the,
Yeah.
it's ending socially if, even if it's, there's some virus circulating in the community and
But that
um
doesn't because the pandemic is over doesn't mean the virus is gone. It just
no,
means that we're not at the pandemic level, right?
correct. And now that it's over, I think the post-mortem and the analysis of how we dealt with the pandemic is more important than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not COVID's not over. The pandemic part of COVID is over. We should just be clear,
Yeah.
according to
So
Biden.
is it like an epidemic now, or did he like classify it anything?
No, he just said it sort of offhandedly during a 60 Minutes interview, but they never walked it back, which they always walk back some of the comments he makes that are sort of out of the norm, as he's known to be kind of a gaffe machine.
I feel
uh,
like this wasn't a gaffe.
no,
I mean, I feel like it wasn't. I think that even leading up to the midterms, I think that this is probably something he wanted to declare. Don't you think?
I do. I think he wants to put it in the rearview mirror. He wants to move on to his other, policy goals, and he wants to look toward the future. And I think it's smart. I think it's the right call. Um, that's not my that's not what I wanted to bring up though. It was
Okay.
sort of a prelude to there was a study in the Lancet, and the Lancet's medical journal that's pretty well respected. They
Does it
did a.
is it does it have a political leaning or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And they did a COVID commission, and there's a new paper that just came out titled "The Lancet Commission on Lessons for the Future from the COVID-19 Pandemic."
Mm.
And I'm I, full disclosure here,
Yeah.
I didn't read the whole
Kind of like
paper.
kind of like me with the Brett Favre article. Got
Kind
it.
of like me in college. I didn't read it.
Yeah.
Um, but I can talk
Oh,
about it
speaking of
knowledgeably.
that, speaking of you in college, just real quick, just a quick anecdote. I was on my way to class and I spilled gas on me somehow because I was putting gas in my car. And for some reason, we were on the phone or I called you and I was like, oh my God, I just spilled gas on me. Should I go to class? And you said, Suzanne, one time I didn't go to class because I couldn't find a pencil. And I was like, okay, cool. Okay.
But I still got an A. So
Yeah, he's still okay. Continue.
Okay, so this is a summary thread by Joseph Allen, who's an associate professor at Harvard. Um, Writes for Washington Post, New York Times. He's been kind of a middle of the road voice on COVID, and he summarized this Lancet article. And let me just read a few of these tweets here, which we will link in the show notes. Um, Since the beginning of the pandemic, UNESCO estimates that nearly 370 million children across 50 countries have missed meals since school closures began, and that
Mm.
globally an estimated 39 billion in-school meals have been missed as a result of pandemic-induced school closures.
Oh
An
my
average
God.
of 4 in 10 in-school meals have been missed by children around the world, and this number increases to as many as 9 in 10 in some countries. The absence of a structured school-led routine and peer interactions has disrupted the lives of children, amplified the anxiety caused by isolation and their fears of the disease, and led to the loss of physical, intellectual, and social engagement.
Whoa.
I just want to hear your thoughts about that. I mean, this is sort of the postmortem of our response to COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It it makes me tear up. I think that, and this is how I've felt really for a long time, not right away, but as it kind of kept wearing on, it did feel like our children, collectively, our children, were bearing the brunt of the pandemic. And
Globally, a median of 1 in 5 young people aged 15 to 24 years said that they often felt depressed or had little interest in doing things.
mm, yeah, it feels like we don't even know the ramifications of the mental health of what this has done to our kids because
And
we don't.
let me just say that so the recriminations are happening and the analysis is happening. You know, we're looking back sort of with a historical lens and looking at what we did. And so many of the retrospectives say, as a result of the pandemic, you know, there's a mental health crisis in the country. As a result of the pandemic, anxiety in children is through the roof. This is not true. This is not the result of the pandemic. The
Hmm.
virus didn't do these things. It's our response to the virus that did these things.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that and to really look at that and study that, which is what this Lancet Commission is doing, because our response to the virus arguably created these problems more so than the virus did itself.
Yeah, because by and large, I mean, without like unforeseen health issues, children were not at risk of this, right? And, but we asked the most from them.
Absolutely.
They did because they don't have autonomy, because they couldn't say no. It wasn't up to them. They did what adults were unwilling or unable to do in
Partly
almost
because they didn't have a
every.
choice.
That's what
They
I
didn't
mean.
have
They
it.
didn't
They were the least, you know, the least
vocal.
able.
They were, yeah, they were the ones who were most vulnerable to not the virus. They weren't vulnerable to the virus. They were vulnerable to the effects of the pandemic. Um,
The interventions. They were
yeah,
vulnerable to the interventions.
yeah,
You know, with school closures, I think I can confidently say that school closures will be looked back on as the biggest policy mistake in the history of our country, if not the world. It makes 9/11, you know, and the Iraq war stemming from 9/11, bad as it was, the impact school closures have had on an entire generation of children just dwarfs whatever impact 9/11 would have society
yeah.
or the Iraq war would have society wide.
Well,
It will
because
be
it's
studied for
children.
generations. It's children,
Yeah,
and
it's our future.
I've heard the
And
number bounce around a lot, but once we closed schools, we lost millions of kids from the school rolls. They're just gone. They never came back.
Oh, and the thing is, you quoted numbers globally. Like we don't have to look globally to see this. I mean, in Chicago, CPS being closed for as long as it was. I mean, there are children in Chicago who had to go without meals, who had to stay home in abuse, who didn't have the safety of school. Like you don't have to look far. Even in, and this is totally anecdotally, and I live in a very privileged little bubble, and my kids are not the ones who have suffered compared to the rest of the nation's children. They're not going to be the ones who fall through the cracks, because those kids are that's the majority of kids who had to go without school. They are going to fall through the cracks. So my kids are not going to fall through the cracks, but I have even seen them miss weeks of school, months of school, even when we were doing Zoom, that that was unnecessary, that they didn't have to.
Well, and thank God they were going into a stable,
Yes,
safe home when
with
they weren't in school. But
technology, which
exactly, but
with
and
like
how
that.
many
Mm-hmm.
how many how many kids were not able to do this?
It's
Um,
hard. It's heartbreaking.
this is again from the study. One estimate from the World Bank suggests that this generation of children could potentially lose an estimated $10 trillion globally in their lifetime earnings.
Oh my god.
The
And what
loss
is
of
it?
learning could also potentially increase learning poverty levels to 63% and drive countries even further off track from achieving their learning poverty goals.
Ugh. It's it feels so far reaching and so hopeless when you start to think about it. Even and I want to point out that the missing school is not that's not stopping. That's not ending. First, we still need a negative COVID test to go back to school, but also I have the vantage point of seeing my youngest just turned 3. So when the pandemic started, so he was born September 2019. And so the first 2 years of his life he
He,
spent
he's
at
never had
home.
normal school.
He's never had normal school, but also he was not exposed to the
Mm.
germs, the viruses that you should be exposed to build up tolerance. He or build up immunity or whatever it is. I'm not a scientist, but I'm just talking about in my world right now. He has had a cold for the last 3 weeks that he cannot kick. He can't kick it. And this happens constantly. It's just on a cycle. Even my 5-year-old, they don't have these immune systems that
Mm-hmm.
a cold lasts a week or whatever. They can't kick these little things, which keeps them out of school.
Well, and I think the general public is really wanting to move on. I mean, that's why I think Biden's comments didn't get much play. But I think that it's important to to be aware of what happened so that it never happens again. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who previously pushed school closures and lockdowns are now, walking away from it and pretending that they never supported it, because the data is just, I mean, any sort of social chart you see in 2020, it just goes through the roof. Like childhood obesity, drug use, anxiety, depression, learning
Suicide.
loss, suicide. It's just, and all in the service of saving people who are vulnerable to the virus, but willing to sacrifice those who are the least, have the least autonomy in our society. It's
Yeah.
I Mom is sick of me talking about it, and you probably are too. But I think the fact that this happened is just shook my trust in institutions. It shook my trust in government. And I'm not sure that I can get it back. I'm
Yeah.
very skeptical now in a way that I wasn't prior to that.
Well, it does feel like you have been talking, you've kind of had this like drumbeat of like, wait a second, this isn't, especially as you're passed as a Democrat. And it's like, wait a second, we're all about education and mental health. Why is everything that we're doing going against that, our values? And so you kind of have had this kind of conversation going this whole time, and now it seems like the data is catching up to what you've been saying. And
That
so
often
now,
happens. Yeah, so I just have to wait for the data to catch up
yeah,
with whatever I'm talking about, and it does. It will.
it will. It will. But it does feel like, there's also these identity politics, and when it's like I am a Democrat and I am, and when your values align with the party, that works out. But the pandemic and the pandemic response kind of threw that all into question, and it did feel like in part that the Democratic Party left us.
I yeah. I mean, that's what I've been, as you know, that's what I've been saying for years. And I think from a psychological standpoint, it just shows what fear can do.
Yes.
When you're fearful, then it's very easy to jettison your principles.
Well, when you're fearful, what you want is control,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so you're going to try to control what you can control. And unfortunately, what they could control is the little kids who couldn't, they can't say no. They don't have a voice. They don't have power. And so, yeah, that
And
they are, they bore the brunt of this entire thing.
that used to be our thing, was raising up those who didn't have a voice, and giving voice to the voiceless. Like that was from the Democratic Party, the progressive left. That was our thing,
Right.
and we just let it go. Um,
Yeah.
I hope we're getting it back, but I think it's important as we turn the page on the pandemic. It's important to really study what happened so that we make sure that it never happens again.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also, we're talking kind of broad brush strokes of like as a party and as a nation, but also like as people in communities, and as people like, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of Democrats have become really judgmental when it comes to this stuff.
Oh, the
And
shame.
the
Shame is like the
shaming and the
tool in their tool
judgment.
their toolkit. Their number one tool is shame. Which
Right.
anyone
Like,
tries to make me feel shame, and I'm
right. Like, and it is
I
this like,
literally get
I literally
start
get
coughing.
verklempt. It's like this virtue signal of like, you know, I I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, mom went somewhere, I forgot where, and everyone was wearing a mask and she wasn't. And she was like, I felt good not wearing a mask, but I was worried that people would think I was a Trumper.
Right. Right. Which, I mean, think about that. Like we're being shamed and judged by our own party, my values align with Democrats almost the whole way through, except on this.
Yeah.
Like somewhere we went wrong on this because we weren't questioning and really studying and following the data and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I just ask anybody who like don't deal in shame. It just
Well,
never works for anything.
yeah, that's true. It's a horrible motivator, shame. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the tide is turning such that lockdowns, school closures will be seen as just a huge mistake in the same way that the Iraq War was seen as a mistake. And even the people who supported these policies will walk away from it the same way that they did with the Iraq War. Vinay Prasad, who's a doctor, and he's written and spoken a lot on this topic, and he said, the Iraq War was incredibly popular, and now you can't find anybody who admitted that they supported it. And I think lockdowns and school closures will be similar to that. They were
Yeah.
popular, but now the tide is turning, and nobody's going to support it. Although I would say, and I would reiterate, that this was socially a far bigger
Yeah.
issue than the Iraq War was. I mean, this is society wide. There's not a single person in society who is not affected by these policies in
Yeah, I mean this
one way
was
or the
right.
other.
Yeah, this was right at home in our most important population.
I give an example of what online schooling was when I think you told me this, Suzanne, that Harper was
Mm.
online.
This was the one day we did. So she was in kindergarten. And so she was supposed to have Zoom school every morning. And I give the teachers, I mean, the teachers,
Yeah, sure. They were
I mean,
cogs in a machine. They were
yeah,
doing the best they could.
they were asked to do something impossible and they tried to do it. And in many cases, they did it. They did, like they deserve all so much credit. But so she had Zoom school in the morning and then she went to school every afternoon. And we did Zoom school one morning. The first morning I had it all set up. I was like, okay, let's do it. And then I
Yeah, and
come
wasn't Harper
down.
running in place?
Yeah. And she was running in place looking at her computer. And I said, what are you doing? And she was like, gym. And I was like, oh no, nope, nope, nope. And so then we did not do Zoom school. And that was a luxury that I was home,
Yeah.
that I was able to then, nurture her love of art and do all that. We did other things, but that I do realize that's a luxury that most Americans weren't afforded.
Yeah, and crank up the anxiety, through the
Oh,
media, and crank up the fear, and then put kids in the situation without any sort of, you know, safety or, any way to leave the environment. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to think of the millions and millions of kids who suffered during that time. I'm glad the pandemic is over, according to Biden, but I think we need to. I think the recriminations need to start.
yeah, it's got to be a post-mortem now to see. Also, it's still go like I still just saw a commercial that showed like maybe like an 85-year-old and it was like get vaccinated and it showed kids for him and it showed the 85-year-old.
Well,
And
right, and so here are the Democrats, moving away from their values again, where the same Democrats and progressives who championed the movie Dope Sick about how big
yeah.
pharma was pushing,
Mhm.
opiates on the masses and how bad it was. Now they're the ones who are saying, "Oh, I'm team Pfizer, I'm team Moderna.
Right.
I got a Pfizer tattoo."
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ability for people just to completely reverse on their principles is something that I'll never forget.
Well, and I got vaccinated even though I was not afraid of getting COVID and I didn't think I was at risk. I did get vaccinated because it did feel like socially my responsibility. But for my kids, and they got vaccinated only because of the system.
Hmm.
That's the only reason I got them vaccinated.
Not because of
I,
their safety or
I
anything, their
would not.
medical
No, that's a no.
profile.
It was a bridge too far for me to vaccinate my kids to protect the elderly. I will do that for me, but that's a bridge too far for me to put my kids
On the
to get
front
my
lines.
yeah to get my kids vaccinated to I just wasn't willing to do that, nor do I feel like I should. Also, the only reason I did was for the system because that way, if they were exposed to COVID, they wouldn't have to quarantine for 10 days, which they were having to, even if they didn't have symptoms, even if they didn't have COVID. If they had someone who they came in contact with who had COVID, they also had to quarantine for 10 days if they weren't vaccinated. And that was me then saying, no, okay, fine, I'll get them vaccinated. Um, but we have not gotten boosted or anything like that because I don't even know what that is.
It's yeah. I mean, this is not an anti-vax conversation, obviously.
I'm like pro-vax.
Yeah,
We're vaxxed for everything.
yeah.
I'm always like we're right on schedule with vaccines. Like I've never been anti-vax.
Okay, well, we're out of time, Suzanne. That was a
Okay,
that was a fun way to end it.
Jay, hold on. I just got a text message that says IDPH records indicate that you or someone in your care are due for a COVID-19 shot. Just so you know, that just came in at 9:04 this morning.
Can you say that Biden says the pandemic is over and it's time for the recriminations?
Yeah, I will.
Is that a
That
is
will
that
be
a
my.
is that
It
a
was like
like a canned response?
yeah, like press 1 for to schedule. Press 2. Okay, well, it's a good conversation. Ongoing.
Ongoing, yes, and it needs to be ongoing. So
Yeah.
thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Jay.
Love, Moo.
I'll move by.